we ready to continue?
In one moment. Let me make sure. Okay, it is live streaming right now on YouTube. And if you were to look up our, it'll be on our page, TB Planning, and it is 06/03/2020. And that is a second backup for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jason, is that TB or PB planning?
T as in Thomas, B as in boy. Planning, PLANNING, 06/03/2020.
Because it's not the TB, it's the PB.
Jason, repeat it one more time, please. Jason?
Okay. So,
I have it as, give me a second. Let's make sure. All right. Yeah, that was a mistake on my part. It just says, it should just say EH Planning. Thank you.
All right. Give the address, Jason, if you don't mind. Give the address again.
Yep. And if you guys want to,
yeah, you can hang up.
all right.
Jason?
Yes.
Just give that streaming address one more time, and then let's get on to the next caller.
All right. Thank you.
How many do we have? How many do we have?
Let's see. We have 5 people on hold right now. Sorry, we have 4 attendees on hold right now. All have spoken so far.
All have spoken so far?
Yes.
All right. In that case, let's go through them, and if anyone new comes on, let me know.
All right.
So give
And
me the
I'll.
first person.
Okay. This one. Okay. Hello,
what's
caller.
up?
You are on the line.
All right. Caller, I understand you've spoken before. You wish to speak again? Hello? Caller? All right, Jason is the person, or Mike if the person's not there. Is there someone there who wishes to speak right now?
I'm moving on.
Please. All right, next caller.
All right. Moving on.
Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, I understand you've spoken earlier. You wish to speak again?
No, I didn't speak. My husband spoke about different issues.
Okay, well, fine. Let's have your name, spell your name, your address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Sharon Felder. I live at 23 Shoreditch.
Spelling is F-E-L-D-E-R?
S-H-A-R-Y-N, F-E-L-D-E-R, F as in Frank.
Thank you. All right, proceed, please.
Okay. I'm several short blocks from the proposed cell tower adjacent to the historic little St. Peter's Chapel. I was dismayed to learn at the 0 hour of this AT&T plan, as AT&T apparently did not reach out to the Barnes Landing community residents. I love the spirit of Barnes Landing, their community events, great respect for natural environment and its connection to art history has been stated, such as like Joan Mitchell's incredible 57 painting, George went swimming at Barnes Hole, but it got too cold. I'm opposed to AT&T's structure because it's not keeping with the Barnes Landing aesthetic on any level and its association with wonderful artists, but I really reject this proposal because of this environmental impact. The proposed site is near a wetland system, which has been mentioned in Natural Preserve, home to a myriad of wildlife, migrating birds and pollinators and rare plant species, but introducing a 50-foot cell tower adjacent could potentially be very destructive to this vast ecosystem. There are many studies on the effects of cell towers on migrating birds and pollinators. One study states that cell towers might disrupt the compass of birds, causing them to become disoriented disoriented, affecting their normal navigation. Even homing pigeons, for example, have exhibited frantic and disoriented behavior near cell towers. And there's no doubt that introducing any 50-foot structure will increase the likelihood of birds' collision into that structure. The Audubon Society said millions of birds are killed annually by colliding into structures of similar height. The cell tower will also break up an expansive habitation, and when habitations are broken up, pollination for the whole area is disrupted. So I urge the board to look for alternate locations. No variation in design at this location will be suitable. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next caller, please. Mike?
Caller, you are live on the air. Hearing nothing, Chair, I'll move to the next caller.
Please.
Caller, you are live on the air.
Hello? Can you
Please
hear me?
Spell your name. Yes, spell your name and your
Yes.
address, please.
My name is Jim Cass, Jimcass, 429 Old Stone Highway.
Proceed,
I'm
please.
going to read a letter from Herb Fierro, the president of Barnes Landing Association. My name is Herb Fierro, and I am president of the Barnes Landing Association. I represent 250 property owners. I'm writing to you regarding the proposed cell tower to be located at 465 Old Stone Highway in Amagansett. While St. Peter's Chapel, for which the cell tower is proposed, is not a designated historic structure, it would certainly qualify as one by age, built in 1879, and the role it plays in our living community. The intermediate surrounding neighborhood has a rich history as a home to well-known artists and their studios dating back to the 1940s, the height of East Hampton's historic role in abstract expressionism and other crucial art movements of the 20th century. Preserving the historic character of the neighborhood is an important aspect of East Hampton's cultural history. The applicant has approached you to ask for not one variance, not two variances, not three variances, but a total of 4 variances, which would be needed for this application to be successful. As far as my membership is concerned, 4 variances is totally unacceptable, and the total application should be denied. We are very concerned for the character and safety of our neighborhood, and we recommend the proposal for the tower facility be relocated to an alternative site. Thank you for your anticipated cooperation in this matter. Sincerely, Herb Fierro, President, Barnes Landing Association. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Okay. Mike? Mike?
Yes,
Jason?
Chair,
How are you doing?
there is one more caller who has spoken before, and I will open that up.
Very well. Thank you.
Caller, you are on the air. Caller, are you there?
Yeah. This is Valerie Coster.
All right, yeah, Ms. Coster, please, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So I thank you very much to the chairman. I did just want to bring up that at this particular time, I guess I'm surprised in a way that a public hearing would be held, quote unquote, with social distancing. Each and every one of us who live in this neighborhood, who've taken tremendous amount of time since we just learned of this, literally, 10 days ago that it was going to be held in this type of format, have been struggling with working from home, taking care of everything we need to do, and then have to prepare for this particular public hearing. And I just think that there should have been some consideration for a postponement based on, we're literally, Governor Cuomo was lifting the orders on June 8th. Here out east, it has been lifted, so why we can't have a real public hearing where people get to be seen, which is critically important to this process. This is a huge, huge impact on our lives, and it deserves to have the time and attention that each and every one of us has taken to prepare for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Mike, do we have any further callers? Any other callers, I should say? No, waiting.
Yes, caller, you are now live on the air. Could you spell your name and give us your address?
Hello?
They actually just hung up. I have one more caller.
Okay, let's hear from them.
Caller, you are on the air. Can you spell your name and give us your address, please? I'm hearing nothing, Chair. There are no other callers.
Very good. All right, Thomas, we're not going to close the public hearing. The public hearing remains open until pursuant to the notice. Is that correct? Am I right on that?
That's correct. So I guess you can do it. The applicant should have an opportunity to respond. They can do it in writing, or they can do it in a couple minutes right now, whichever you prefer.
Well, leave it to the applicant. I would. Well, I'm not going to close. Tempting though that may be. Mr.
Chairman
Fitzgerald.
Kramer, if I may, I promise to be extremely brief. Would you like me to right now, or were you going to say something else?
No, I was going to say, if you can do it under 3 minutes, that would be appreciated.
Absolutely, and if I can, I'm sure I can submit something in writing following the meeting. I just want to make 3 very brief points. 2 of them are related. One, there's been a lot of discussion today from the public, and it's always good to have members of the public involved. I do appreciate the feedback, but there's been a lot of discussion about items such as the setbacks, the variances, which were actually already addressed in the context of the Zoning Board of Appeals approval. So with respect to the application as it sits before the Planning Board, those variances have already been granted, and that issue is really outside of the jurisdiction of the Planning Board. To the extent that there are standards in the special permit section, those standards are directory and not mandatory, and those issues in any event, as I stated, have been resolved by the Zoning Board of Appeals. With respect to environmental issues, we've already gone through the seeker process and gotten the negative declaration pursuant to seeker. The record is very clear with respect to wetlands. That was one of the points of concern that was emphasized. I would like to note a recent development on the wetland point is that we got a permit from New York State Department of Environmental Conservation with respect to the facility, and they agreed that the facility doesn't pose a risk to the adjacent wetland in any event. The only other issue I'd like to address is I understand the neighbors, I believe at 461 and 463 Old Stone Highway brought up regarding the geotechnical analysis that was done on the site. Just to be clear, nothing has been constructed. There was an incident wherein consultants of AT&T inadvertently utilized the neighbor's driveway thinking it was a county road in order to access the site. This was a mistake that we've made sure to talk to all the consultants to make sure it doesn't happen again. We understand that in doing so, they spray painted some areas on the driveway to mark for I believe for their trucks to back up. And they disassembled a shared fence, which was located between the 2 properties. So in responding to this, I believe the issue with the fence has already been resolved, and it's my understanding that the portion of the fence was located on the church's property pursuant to the latest survey we had from the town. With respect to the driveway, I understand that issue is ongoing. I understand that Shore to Shore, our site acquisition consultant, is in conversations with the neighbors. To the extent that the neighbors wish to reach out again, or if there are any concerns with the speed of response, I'm of course happy to follow up with Shore to Shore to try and address their concerns. Lastly, the neighbors requested that we do some planting with some new vegetation in that area. The only reason that hasn't happened yet, it's my understanding, is due to a recent cold spell. It wasn't feasible for them to plant yet, but the intention certainly is to do so. So I just wanted to say that, and again, issue an apology to those neighbors and assure them that the issue won't occur again. AT&T is committed to being a good corporate citizen and a good neighbor to all the neighbors of its sites. And other than that, I'm happy to turn things back over to the Planning Board.
Thank you very much. Okay, with that, as noted earlier, July 6th, the public has until July 6th to get written comments into the Planning Board, and they will be considered. You can be assured of that. We will all read them. You can also be assured of that. And I'm not, Jason, Thomas, just are we adjourning the, what am I doing? I just want to make sure that I procedurally move on to the next thing correctly.
I mean, I would just say we've moved on from the I don't know, video conferencing portion of the public hearing, and it will remain open until July 6th, so we can just move on to the next item.
For written comment. Okay, very well. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Thank you to the
Thank you.
applicant. And let's move on now to doesn't find it. Oh, Emergency Service Communication Facility is Springs Fire District. And just, I don't mean to catch you by surprise, Lou, but I know you spoke last time. I'm going to ask, if you don't mind, when the time comes, that you speak again, because I want us to all be, I want your comments fresh in our recollection.
Yeah, sure, Sam. No
Thanks.
problem.
I should have mentioned that earlier. Okay, all right, so.
Is the applicant here?
Yeah, I think I see the applicant's name up on the board.
Yeah.
Is the applicant here on Springs Fire, sorry about that, Springs Fire District? I think I see council's name up there.
Excuse me, Chair, what is their name?
Carl, is it Carl, Matt, is it Carl, Thomas, is it Carl Irace's case?
Carl and Janine Brino.
And Janine Brino, okay, thank you.
I think she was saying she was calling in.
There's Carl, I see Carl, okay. Okay, there he is. All right,
And Eddie Snell is present as well.
I saw Eddie, there he is, hi Eddie, okay.
Excuse me, Chair, I have a caller, I believe that is Janine.
Fine, if you could bring her in.
Caller, you're live on the air.
Okay, very good.
Janine.
All right, and is Joanne, I see, I don't see you, but I see the room. You're there, Joanne?
Yes, I am, and I've got the visualizations up ready to go.
Very good. Okay, let's start with Joanne, and then we'll hear from the applicant, and then I think we'll hear from Eddie, and then we'll go to Lou. Right? So go ahead.
This was last reviewed in December of last year. The applicant has submitted some visualizations. Just as a background, it's an application to construct an 180-foot tall monopole with various antennas and a dish for the East Hampton Police Department and Springs Fire Department, along with ground level equipment shelter. It's also proposed that the already existing 150-foot tall stealth monopole that was constructed fairly recently, that be removed. The property has a firehouse, building, a garage, a shed, and various other minor structures that are owned by the Springs Fire Department. It's a neighborhood business zoning district. So at the time of the initial review, as well as a subsequent meeting on December 18th of 2019, the board requested that additional visualizations from various points in the surrounding area be submitted. Additional visualizations from Creative Visuals LLC have been submitted. These include visual renderings from 6 different locations along Talmadge Farm Lane, Springs Fireplace Road, and Fort Palm Boulevard. These images were produced based upon a field inspection performed on February the 5th, 2020. The planning board should review this document and determine if any additional visual information is required. If no additional information is needed at this time, then it appears that the application is otherwise complete. So can you see the smart board at this point?
I see an array of all of us.
No, the smart board is not being displayed right now. You can hit shared screen again.
Okay, I didn't unshare, so I will try to.
Yeah.
Okay, now I've got to find the
pictures.
Find the pictures again because they are not up anymore. June 3rd. Okay, I apologize. I had it opened a moment ago. This is June. Okay, I'm sorry. Here we go. Okay, these are the visualizations. All right, this is a locational map. It's very dark. The fire station is in the middle, and then there are some other red dots that represent the different locations where the visualizations took place. Okay. So this is the existing view from the intersection of Fort Palm Boulevard and Malone Street. Can I move this? This is a computer simulated photo from that intersection of what it would be with the proposed cell tower. This is the existing view from Talmadge Lane. And this is the a visualization of what the view would look like with the construction of the tower. Viewpoint 3 is from Girard Drive. And given the cloudiness of the sky and the graininess of the picture and the color of the pole, I'm not really able to pick up where it would be coming up on here. That's the existing view. Here's the computer simulated one. So I'm not really sure where along here the tower's located. This is existing view from Louse Point Road and Louse Point Boat Ramp. And this view is with the computer simulation. So I'm not sure if you're not able to see the tower at all, or if you're not able to see it because of the coloration of the photo and the tower. This is viewpoint 5 from 911 Springs Fireplace Road, existing. And this is proposed, and here you see the tower in the background here. Existing view, point 6 from Fort Palm Boulevard, that's existing. This is with the computer simulation. And there were a couple of other viewpoints that I only found existing viewpoints in the document. I didn't find proposed. So those are the visualizations that I have for you to view. So going along, under SECRA, the board should discuss whether or not the application presents the potential for a significant adverse environmental impact. Accordingly, a consensus over whether or not to make a negative declaration should be formed. It is recommended that the board consider the following questions, which must be answered under SECRA. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? And a second question, will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? As indicated in the submitted visualizations, the proposed tower would be visible from both the Springs Historic District and a scenic area of statewide significance. The board is reminded that the subject application is for an emergency service facility and not a personal wireless services facility. As such, the specific special permit standards of section 255 550 of the town code do not apply. In conclusion, the board should determine if any additional information is required at this time. If no additional information is required, then the board should form a consensus on a secret declaration. And you wouldn't be making a secret declaration today. We want you to determine whether you are leaning towards a negative or a positive declaration. The planning department would prepare an environmental assessment form part 2 that represented your position. And then it would be time for you to make the secret declaration.
That'll be at a future meeting, right?
Yes.
All right. Does anybody have any specific questions for Joanne? Specifically about the report? Because remember, we will get into a conversation among ourselves after we hear from Joanne and the applicant. Well, we've heard from Joanne. You have to hear from the applicant. And then we're going to ask Eddie Schnell, because this application is relevant to the to emergency services. There are at least issues involving it. And in case any members of the public didn't hear earlier, while ordinarily we will take limited comment from the public during work sessions, including from council for the members of the public during work sessions, we're not able to do that in the current format. When we're back live together in person in the room, in the town board room, then we'll resume that process. But for now, it's just the planning department, the applicant, and in this case, the emergency services. So with that, if nobody has any specific questions for Joanne, I don't hear anybody. So the applicant, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thanks for having us tonight, members of the board. It's nice to see all you in this limited video format, but thanks. My name is Carl Irace. I represent the Springs Fire District. I also have co-counsel here, Janine Brino and John Coughlin. If there are any questions about some of the specifics of the visual renderings or that process, they can answer some of those questions. I wanted to mention that we had some difficulty logging in through this process. We had difficulty with the LTV link. We had difficulty with the Zoom, and we dropped off the phone call. I just thought I'd call that to your attention. It seems like I'm on the call now, and I can hear everyone clearly, and I've been following along, cobbling together YouTube and other manners. So I'm glad you did publish some other ways to try to stay up on this, but it's been difficult.
But you're on Zoom, Tom. Carl, I didn't mean you, Tom. Carl, you're on the Zoom, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm no longer on the phone. I'm no longer using YouTube. I am on the Zoom now. But I intended to do this the other way and had some trouble. So here I am, Plan B.
We're all learning about Zoom. This is an education. Go right ahead.
Yeah. So as far as things go, we are. The board recalls that the existing pole was constructed pursuant to a 2014 building permit issued based on a town attorney's Monroe Doctrine memo saying that the fire departments, the fire districts in town are exempt from review for this type of improvement. And that was for the existing pole. The purpose of this application is to accommodate the police department's equipment. And as we understand it, they're still interested in our site. And if that changes, we'll go back to the existing pole, which the fire district's been using not in its full capacity, but we do have some emergency communications equipment on that pole. It is functioning. It's not optimized, and this application would help optimize our site and also help optimize the entire network of emergency communications by bringing the police department equipment into this part of Springs. This application is about public safety, and that brings us to where we are now. We understand the board wanted us to help provide some information to evaluate a modified pole location. So we did that. We had some visual tests done on notice at the board's request. We're asking you to determine this complete and schedule us for a public hearing, issue a negative declaration, or as this board has in other matters, hold the public hearing and make its secret determination as part of the decision. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have or be of any other assistance I can. You know, I heard the mention of a scenic area of statewide significance come up. You know, that is a document that is filed. The town has, it's filed with the Department of State. And that is part of the review of policy 24 and an LWRP consistency review process. And this site is outside of LWRP. This site and this project are outside of LWRP consistency review jurisdiction. So I don't know why that term's coming up, but we're happy to discuss that further. I mean, I think I don't think we hear anything more on that, but I'm happy to discuss it if you need to.
I have a question for you. You mentioned the word optimized a moment or two ago, and you said that your service wasn't optimized, and then you said something about adding the police emergency services. And I want to make sure that I understand this correctly. Is the Springs Fire Department, is their service right now, forgetting about the police and other emergency services, is their service under present conditions optimized? And if it isn't, what isn't optimized about it?
No, the only thing, the pole currently is used to house some of the backup communications equipment, and there would be additional equipment that the police department, that the fire department would add to optimize its communications. But a big thing that would benefit the emergency response network is the police department equipment. So while we have some,
I'm focusing on the fire department. At the current height that you have of the current pole, is the service for the fire department optimized?
No, we only have backup communications on there, which
I'm sorry, go ahead, finish.
We only have backup communications on the pole. It includes some point-to-point communications and another form of backup that I think is related to the pagers.
Do you need
it's not the truck-to-truck or the fire station-to-truck communications? None of the primary communications are on the pole. Only backup communications.
Tim, I think you're.
Randy, let me.
The height of the pole is what.
That's my question. Do you, Carl, Randy, let me finish my question, please.
Okay.
Carl, do you, in order to optimize the fire department's usage, do they need more height on their pole?
No, that was solely at the request of the police department and for the benefit of mounting their equipment above ours, because that's town-wide and not hamlet-wide equipment. So the additional height
to optimize. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Carl. I don't want to cut you off.
Right. The extra height is only for the police equipment.
Okay.
Our equipment was originally the existing pole at 150 feet is what we needed for fire department, fire district equipment. The additional height is only to accommodate the police needs.
Okay. Randy, sorry, go ahead. Did I get your question?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
I have a question for Carl.
Go ahead, Lou.
Carl, I just want to get the finances clear in my head. So the pole is being constructed by a company that I forget the name of it, and they will pay the fire district rental for building it on their space. Is that correct, Carl?
I'd have to review the ground lease agreement.
But, okay. All right, next question. If the police department puts its communication equipment on the pole, will they be paying rental in order to do that? And to whom would they be paying that rental?
Well, we've offered the police department to locate free of rent.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else have any questions for the applicant? All right. In that case, I'd like to.
But one more, I mean,
Yeah,
there
go
is
ahead,
a
Paul.
there is a
Go ahead.
draft lease with the town attorney's office.
Okay, thank you. All right, let me now turn to Eddie Schnell. And Eddie, you there?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So the replacement tower as designed does meet the town's requirements to accommodate its equipment structurally, spatially, and the minimum heights to provide a right word. Just when we design these tower sites, we design them to live through a hurricane and to provide continuous service through them. And we do that to all of our sites. This site does meet all of those requirements. It meets the requirements for us to provide coverage to fill in a gap that we have within Springs and on a system that's usable not only by the police department, but also all the fire departments, ambulance, and other town and village government agencies that use the systems day in and day out.
How high does it have to be?
I believe our minimum was 163 for the dish, which would mean that the tower would be a little bit taller than that to accommodate the actual mounting mechanisms. Because the number that I give as the minimum is actually the center, the very middle of the dish. It's not actually the top of the steel. So the actual designer of the tower could take that and determine a final height of steel, but it's probably only 10 feet shorter by the time you're done doing all that math.
So what would the top, how high would it go? What would the, absolute top of it be?
Of the tower steel or of the antenna whips?
I guess both. The whips are very narrow, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you can barely see that.
the whips are only a few inches wide.
Yeah.
The top of the steel, you could probably do about 170, but we'd have to have the entire tower redesigned and new structural reports done to verify that it's still compliant with what we need. The tallest antenna I believe we're putting on top is an additional 15 feet above that, but there is actually an overlap between the top of the steel and the bottom of the antenna. So it's effectively 14 feet above the top of the steel.
And this geographic location, is this the only satisfactory geographic location in that part of town to meet the police department's needs?
We've looked at a lot of other town-owned properties. We've looked at the Acabonic brush dump where they recently built that solar field, and it's just too far south. Everything further north was either too small to support a tower and even closely meet the town's requirements, or they were just too small, period. And we have looked at the Girl Scout camp, that existing 60-foot tower, and we've been working with American Tower on that, but that's kind of stopped at this point, pending a lease review and a substantial payment.
Would that location provide the same service that this location does as far as emergency services for the police are concerned?
That one is limited in height by the owner of the property, the Girl Scouts of Nassau County. So it doesn't provide as far of an overlap into neighboring hamlets as this one does. But it's not something that we absolutely need. If this one doesn't go through, we're going to go with the Girl Scout camp. If the Girl Scout camp doesn't go through, we're going to go with this one. They both work for us and suit our needs for right now. And we look forward to moving on to whichever one can get a shovel in the ground.
So that I'm clear, the Girl Scout camp at 60 feet does the same job for you as this location at 163 feet?
No, the Girl Scout camp would be replaced to 120 feet.
I thought you said the owner wouldn't let you do that, or did I get that wrong?
That was the maximum. We'd like to be taller, but they won't let us go over 120.
And at 120 feet, does that provide the same coverage as this location at 163 feet?
Barely.
Barely. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there some other location that we haven't talked about yet in this part of town that, you know, like in a perfect world, that's where you would put your tower at 163 feet?
We haven't found one.
Okay.
They've all either been tied up in CPF or nature preserve or parkland, which requires alienation from the state.
Right. Okay. Does any other board member have any questions for Eddie?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead, Lou.
Eddie, are you familiar or are you aware of any new technology that's coming down the pike that may replace these tall towers in placing the communications equipment? I'm not familiar. I have heard that there are certain technological novel methods on the horizon, but I don't know whether that's something that we can expect in the near future, or it's something that's way down the road, and it's nothing that we can really count on. So I was wondering if you were familiar with anything that would be new and, you know, the next level that would replace these long, tall towers.
Is it more directed towards public safety communications or cellular?
For your purposes. Lou, do you mean for Eddie's purposes or just cellular in general?
No, for Eddie's purposes, for emergency communication.
So on the emergency communications front, there's been a push to try and replace it with cellular, and it's been an overwhelming failure to this point. And there's a reason that we've been using two-way radios for 80 plus years now. It's because they just work, and they work when nothing else does. I don't see in the next 20 to 50 years us not needing a tall tower. That it's basic physics and RF that the higher you go, the more coverage you have. And when you need to cover an area with the least number of towers, because each tower costs the town in equipment up front between $500,000 and $1 million, and a very large service contract, going to a smaller cell type solution would just never happen. On the cellular side of things, they are moving into the millimeter wave bands, much higher frequencies, which do not travel anywhere near as far as their current frequencies in use. So they're having to actually install these smaller sites, but they need a lot more of them. And the caveat to that is they have all these little sites, but they still need the tall ones for anybody traveling at a high rate of speed down a highway. The phone can't physically switch from one site to the next fast enough on a small cell setup. So the basic answer to the question is the tall towers aren't going away anytime soon.
Okay, thank you.
That's a word from on high. Okay. All right, does anyone else have any questions for Eddie?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
So, Eddie, I think in the past you we had heard that the police department was not interested in the Springs Fire Department site. I'm just trying to get clarity on that.
I don't know who you heard that from, but with the police department's official stance is we're interested in anything that can get a shovel put in the ground and get moving. Okay,
so when the fire department built their existing 150-foot tower, were you guys coordinating with them, or?
I was not employed by the town at that point. From what I understand is there may have been a phone call and no actual technical detail passed. I know that the fire district has stated they've received some type of memo or something from the county that they would be interested in it, but I'm not the county, so I can't really answer that.
All right. I guess we're kind of relying on you to tell us that. I have heard that there's communication gaps for the fire department. So that would be what you're calling two-way radios?
Yeah, so the fire department operates on the town's 800 megahertz trunking and UHF paging systems as primary users. So unless there's a town site somewhere within Springs, they have poor coverage, and they've had poor coverage since they moved on to these systems in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay.
The fire district does maintain its own low band systems independent of the town. That's something it's the old countywide system that people have moved away from due to interference and equipment's getting harder and harder to get. But the fire district is responsible to keep that equipment operational, just in case the town is having problems, that they do have something to fall back to.
So they've basically got two systems there. The fire department has two systems they're using out of the Fort Pond Boulevard site on that existing pole.
Yeah, so they have some communications equipment to not only talk back to the town systems, but they also have equipment, the low band equipment that they could fall back to. But that's not the day-to-day operations. That's not what they use because it doesn't work the best.
Well, you're saying even with that 150-foot tower, the fire department isn't getting what they need?
Yeah, because they're primary users of the town system until the town has a site that adequately covers the area. They're going to have random gaps of no coverage and a large swath of area of very poor coverage.
So why didn't the fire department build a higher tower when they had the chance? I mean, I know that that's in court, but why did Elite, it wasn't the department, it was the cell carrier that built the 150-foot tower?
Well, 150 foot's a very common height for an off-the-shelf tower. I do microwave analysis in-house, and I can go on the computer and put two sites in and figure out the minimum height that I need to clear a path. Previous to that, we would have had to hire an engineer and have them figure it out, and there would be a billable to the town for something that may or may not happen. My budget's pretty stretched on a normal day.
If I can just jump in for a second, Eddie. Pardon my interruption, but our advice has been that it's not a height issue that prevents us from optimizing the pole. It's an equipment issue. And to go back historically into how our pole got designed, it was designed to hold county equipment. Back then, the fire district was concerned about raising dispatch rates coming from the village, and the county was offering it for free. So our original intention was to house county dispatch equipment on there and other county emergency communications, you know, they have a county-wide emergency response unit that their county equipment would allow us to communicate directly and expediently with the county emergency response unit directly, rather than having to go through the village or other equipment, other dispatch equipment. So, you know, there is more to the history of the design. There were more elements in it than thus far has really come up during this application. Sorry, I just wanted to jump in on that height issue, where there were some questions about the design of the existing pole. To the extent that's relevant here, I'm happy to tell you about it. So sorry for the interruption. Thanks, Eddie.
Thanks very much. All right, let's let Lou, if nobody else has any questions for Eddie, let's let Lou, who's got the application.
I'm wondering if Eddie was talking about hiring a consultant who could do some site-specific analysis, and that he didn't have the budget for that.
I mean, I do the analysis myself in-house now. Previous to that, you would have had to engage a vendor, which is a very long process at the town, which is why I got the software, so I can do it myself.
Okay.
And but we put in the same parameters that our vendor would put in, and it's the same software, so that when I hand it over to them, their job's basically already done, and they just need to put their seal on it and sell me the equipment and install it, and it's a done deal at that point.
Okay. I mean,
doing a service.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say before, and then I'll stop, but we have these applications on these relatively small site. Let's speak specifically about this one. We have this small area site surrounded by houses. And it just, in general, to me, is an inappropriate location for a cell tower. And then we have this, you know, to me, we could do better than this as far as.
Randy, let's leave this after we hear from our board, which is
okay. But I still.
I know where you're going, and I'm not going to discourage you, but
I still don't feel like we've gotten. I think you guys are telling us what you'd like. You know, this is your wish list. And I want to know what your absolute minimum tower heights are. At what point do you walk away?
Every site, depending on the elevation above ground, the tree heights in the immediate area, the proximity to the water, and a whole multitude of other factors, telephone poles in the way. Every site, and even the siting on the property. Fortunately, I had to redo this Springs one because we moved it from one corner of the property to the middle, and fortunately everything turned out the same, and the elevation there is flat. But like the Girl Scouts Blue Bay site, I can get away with that microwave link being lower because of that proximity to the water. There's no trees in the harbor. And the trees are what block those microwave links, the point-to-point links between the sites that bring all the voice and data from the core site at Town Hall to each individual site to be broadcast.
Eddie, can you tell us how high some of the other sites in the system are planned
You know
to be?
what, Carl, we're going to ask the questions. Okay.
So unless there's an actual coordinate defined to a site, that's what we need to even start. But as a general rule of thumb, we want to be at least 30 feet above the tree line minimum in the immediate.
What would that be there, though? 30 feet above the tree line, there's probably 90 feet.
Yeah, but the problem with this site is that you're inland, so you have to look out the entire length to the next site. And we can select other sites and try and make it work. I usually select the sites that provide the lowest overall height because the higher you put that dish up on the tower, the beefier you have to build that tower. So at this site, the lowest path links, the lowest length is to go to the Northwest Brush Dump and to the water tank, Flamingo Road in Montauk. And that was the only way we could even get this site to work, because you're blocked by a hill ridgeline to the south at the dump, and you're blocked on the Montauk side to get to any sites, and you're blocked to the west to get up to Noyak or to Wainscott. And it's really the microwave is the limiting factor. The antennas to talk to the radios in the field, we can deal with about 120 feet.
All right. Well, the other thing I wondered, you know, whenever I'm out and about in town, I see that Altice Tower across from the landfill, which has got to be 300 feet. And I'm just wondering why we don't use that tower for some of this stuff. It's so high and it's already there.
Yeah, so that tower is 350 feet. It's designed as a guide lattice tower. And because of the guys, it makes the alignment on the microwave paths tricky. You need to be inside one of the V's from the guy wires. You can't shoot through them. So that it is possible for us to get a microwave path there. But the other problem with that site is how far south it is. At that location within the town, we're not fully covering the hamlet of Springs. It covers a large part of the southern and kind of middle part of it, but doesn't get all the way up into the nooks and crannies up north. With these sites at Blue Bay and the firehouse, we cover the entirety of Springs.
Blue Bay, you mean the one?
The Girl Scout camp.
What height would the two towers need to be?
You said 120, right?
120.
120 at the firehouse.
120 at Blue Bay, Randy. He said that.
And how high at the firehouse? If you had 120.
163 at the firehouse. Well, actually higher than that. 170 at the firehouse.
No, I'm sorry. I don't think that's the case. What's the lowest tower you would need at the fire station if you had 120 at Blue Bay?
To clear the microwave link at the firehouse, the center of the dish needs to be at 163 feet.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
So that, and then you got to add 7 or so more feet for the dish, and then after that you got the whips. So, all right. Now, I'd like to move on to Lou. Lou, go ahead.
Okay, this isn't an easy one, Sam. There's so many.
No one said it is.
You know, there are so many complexities here and from different angles, and I certainly can appreciate what Eddie has to go through to find the optimal location. And certainly we all know how important the needs of factors, all of these different areas that are pulling against each other, and see which one I place the most importance on and the most value, and the one that stands to benefit the most and also be endangered the most. And it's, you know, it's one man's opinion, it's my opinion, but I'm going to have to go with the with the residents in the area. I don't like this location for a number of reasons. And there's one thing that keeps bothering me about this application, and that's the issue of segmentation.
So, Lou, let's just so we have it framed right. This whole discussion is about SECRA, right? Like tonight, that's what we're doing. Sam?
Yeah, well, that's where the issue before us is the application complete, and are we going to do a POS deck or neg deck on it?
Okay, so just so we have it framed right before you guys get too far into it, I spent a while reviewing the previous meetings and talking to John and our outside counsel today, and I'll just say for SECRA, you know, I think we need the 2 questions that are in the planning memo are good, but we also need to add one about the public safety aspect of this with the setbacks and fall zone. And then, you know, as far as the segmentation issue, I think, you know, first, if the board can find or makes a finding that the tower as constructed, the 180-foot tower that's currently in the application does not have significant adverse impacts when considering the setback and fall zone issues, then we can move on to segmentation. But I think first the board needs to discuss, just as presently put together and considering the two questions in the memo plus the setbacks and fall zone, does it have significant adverse impacts?
Okay, well, in my opinion, it does. And I think we need to have an environmental impact statement because this, you know, proposed action results in a significant adverse impact and it requires an EIS. So if we're just limiting it to that, then my vote is to move ahead with an EIS to determine whether or not we have a pos deck or a negative deck. That's all I have to say then.
That's not how it works.
Yeah, it's Kathy, go ahead. I know
Yeah,
you-
no, we, in order to require the applicant to conduct an environmental impact statement, we have to make a positive declaration. That's it. You know, you've got
That's what
the
triggers
reversed
the
a little bit.
EIS.
POS deck requires an EIS. If we made a negative declaration, it would not require an EIS. So you would need to recommend the board, well, if I'm understanding you correctly, your position is you think there should be a positive declaration under secret, so an environmental impact statement can be prepared to examine the impacts on the environment, the other things that were listed in the memo, and offer alternatives, which is another component of the impact statement.
Lou, you got that?
Is that right, Lou?
Lou?
Yeah, I agree with all of that.
It was one of those cart before the horse deals.
Yeah. I understand.
Well, I think Lou's saying that he thinks there would be an adverse impact as proposed, and that is a positive declaration.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah.
It's the same thing.
In other words, we're going to ask two questions in a few moments. One, is the application complete? And two, does the board wish to make a positive declaration or negative declaration? That's going to provide guidance to the planning department, which is going to come back next week. Tell me when I go off the rails of this. They're going to come back next week with an EAF, and then we will, and then there'll have to be an environmental impact statement after that. Am I right on that, Thomas?
Yeah, that's right. I would only add that in making the decision under SECRA, the board needs to consider the application is currently put together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the questions in the memo plus the setback and fall zone issues, the public safety issues that come with that.
And that should inform our decision about whether to pos deck or negative deck it. Right?
Correct.
It also goes to the scope of the impact statement.
Right.
Yeah, but the scoping that comes down the road. So if there's any, because it's getting really late. I think maybe we should go around the table and get the feeling of each member on POS deck and the neg deck and why, because that's something that's important in making that determination. Thomas, is that something you think?
Chairman, if I can just say something briefly before we go ahead. Setbacks and fall zone aren't, this review isn't part of the wireless code. This is an application for an antenna for communications equipment for the police department. The fire department needs this on its site, needs this equipment on its site, not at Camp Blue Bay, with or without the police department. So I think the conversation needs to be about the standards that are part of this application that are
Well, you've
relevant.
got an application for a 180-foot high tower, right? And right now you've got a 150-foot tower. So your application, I mean, that's the application. That's
So I conferred with John and our outside counsel, and it's our understanding that the tower presently as it is has public safety issues that are relevant to SECRA, and the fall zone and setback issues are that should be part of the SECRA determination.
And isn't the segmentation also part of the secret?
Okay, so first, if we can just address whether or not the current tower, as currently put together, has significant adverse impacts. If we say no, then we can address segmentation. But I think we're getting ahead of ourselves if we're talking about segmentation right now.
Okay, I got ahead of myself. So my vote is that we make a pause deck tonight. And that's all we're doing tonight is what you're saying.
Well, we got to ask if the application's complete, and I guess, you know, that's the first issue. Thomas, should I ask the board on that? Go
Yeah,
around?
I mean, that's
Let me ask you, I'm asking this in order to make sure that I don't, you know, do this in an improper way. I'm going to have the board, I'm going to go around the table. And I'm going to ask each board member to determine whether the application is complete and whether they want to make a pos deck or a negative. And in terms of the latter question, just some, you know, reasoning. Is that all right? Yeah, that's a yes?
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Okay, very good. All right, I've been going from the left in my virtual head. So that's you, Ed.
Yes, I'll answer the second question first. I think we do need to make a positive declaration. And I think it's pretty clear that there's public safety issues, which we just confirmed that they need to be considered. Their neighborhood, community character and quality issues here, and, aesthetic impacts. It is, adjacent to a scenic area of statewide significance. I think all of those things say positive declaration to me. Is the application otherwise, is the application complete? I don't know what else could be provided at this moment. I think what follows will, create a different kind of path for this application. But as of now, I can't see anything else that would need to be added to the application now if we go pause deck.
Thanks very much, Ed. Lou, I just need to know complete or not complete, because you've already indicated positive.
Well, and this is for my own education. If we make a pause deck, can we make a pause deck and declare it complete?
Yeah, I haven't thought about this. I think we need to make a determination on the SECRA first.
So maybe I should just pull up that complete, not complete question then.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, just make a determination on SECRA first.
I think you're right about that. It's more important to make a decision on pos deck, neg deck. So we got two positives. Ian, positive or negative, and why? Ian?
I've lost them.
Sorry, I was on mute there for a second. Yeah, I would not be ready to make a positive declaration on this. I think that this is I think it's obviously a complicated issue. I'm certainly sympathetic with the objections from surrounding property owners. But, what Eddie Schnell said and the police department said is very important in terms of what we need. And I think we do need emergency services. And that goes a long way. So I would be in favor of a negative declaration. And, of course, a public hearing is going to be important in this process, but I'd be in favor of advancing it.
Thanks very much. Kathy?
So I'm having a problem making a secret determination on an application that isn't complete. I think, that seems unusual to me. I favor a positive declaration, but I think in terms of what we've asked the applicant to submit to date, they've submitted it, they sent us the visualizations, and if we're not asking them for anything more, then I think their application is complete. So my recommendation is that we find it complete and then make a secret determination. I mean, Thomas, you could find out otherwise, it'd probably be a good idea. And maybe we don't vote on the pos deck tonight in case there's some, complication with making a secret determination on an application that's not complete. But
actually, I think we're doing is we're giving the planning department a sense of where we are, so that they can prepare something.
No,
for
I
them.
understand that, and we're also giving
So
the
we're not
applicant
going
a
to
sense.
actually vote on that.
No, right. We're giving an applicant a
Yeah.
sense too, and
Yes, exactly.
yeah, I favor a positive declaration. I think the environmental and aesthetic and neighborhood character impacts warrant a deep dive. And I just want to underscore that I know this is for emergency services, and I know that that is a special category compared to wireless services, but personal wireless services, but we can't dismiss that potential from this. And I would like another assessment of where, if a series of shorter poles could go in, that's concurrent with the town's, comprehensive wireless plan or whatever it's called, even though that's dated. But it turns out that with the newer technology, more frequent poles at lower heights, which would be more acceptable to our area as an aesthetic and neighborhood character, providing less disruption to the aesthetics and neighborhood character of our community. That would be a thing I would like to see us research, and perhaps the CIS can help in that, but that's my feeling.
Thank you. Randy?
So I don't think the application is complete, because unless there's more in the file, but I mean, I haven't even seen a survey of the site with everything shown on it. I've seen a blow up, and I don't think we got all the visuals we wanted. However, I know that I think it's a pos deck. We also haven't discussed the fact that our testimony is that the police department doesn't even need a 185-foot tower for their purposes. The fire department doesn't need it. And we have testimony from the applicant that they intend to come back for a cell tower. So that's another aspect here that I think contributes to us needing a pos deck. I think that the Pollock Krasner National Historic Site, community character, the aesthetic and the scenic qualities, the safety of the neighbors, and as Kathy said, the alternatives. Like, we got some indication from Eddie that they could use that 355-foot tower to get a lot of coverage in Springs. And maybe with that and another tower somewhere else, we wouldn't have to do this here. So I don't think we have enough information, and I support a pos deck and an EIS.
Okay, Sharon?
Yeah, I agree. I think we have a neighborhood here that we need to protect at the moment, and having the EIS will give us that information as to how dangerous it actually is. We've had, the aesthetic part is super important, the historic aspect of Springs, and the potential for other possibilities, right? The houses around the firehouse are right up against it. And I think we should explore that.
Thank you. All right, I think it's unanimous that we think that it is a pos deck on this. I myself, I'm concerned about the community, I'm concerned about the areas like issues like fall zone. I could see us finding this as a completed application, but I think that we can hold that issue in abeyance for the moment. I think we've given the planning department enough here to know what to come back with. We will revisit this as the EAF and the resolution was prepared by the planning department, and the applicant will have more opportunity certainly to have input on this.
Hey, will you have a dissent from Ian on this?
Oh gosh, you're right. I apologize.
Yes.
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 My
Yes,
error.
you do it.
My error. Thank you, Randy.
Minority
My
there.
apologies. It's getting late. I apologize. It's right. There is.
Yeah, I'm obviously in the minority. I understand why.
Yeah, no, but
I just think we have to consider the cost of not, providing a space for emergency services. And I think with that in mind, where does it go? It's always easy to find. There's no tower of the height that the police department say that they need to function. There's no height of that tower that will have no problems anywhere. So the fire department, I think, is a logical place. I think there's issues. My mind is not made up to approve this, but I do think we have to consider the cost and the safety issues with not moving it forward. And I get that a pause deck is not a denial, but I do dissent and would be in favor of a negative deck.
I apologize. I did not mean to do that. And I on that point of alternative sites, I think that what I'm hearing is that they actually may be, but let's let the process continue and wind its way a little bit further down the road. If no one has anything else they want to add, we'll regroup on this. I guess the planning department knows which way they're going. Joanne, you know what you need, you know where we are, pretty much.
Thank you.
Okay. Right. So it's late. Let's wrap up with the last application. Carl, thank you very much. You didn't have anything else, right?
I just want to remind everyone, we're offering this site rent-free. There's no substantial payment from the town to the Girl Scouts. This is rent-free for the town. Talking about costs, that's a cost.
Okay. No, thank you.
All right. Have a good night. Thanks, everyone.
You too. Thank you very much. Okay. Marco.
Let's
see
if the applicant for
let's make sure
is Mr. Costanzo.
They were here hours ago.
Yeah, Mr. Costanzo.
Caller, you are live on the air. Could you spell your name? Caller, you are live on the air. That's his phone. Sir, are you there?
Is that his phone?
Yes. Caller, you are live on the air.
And we just let Marco go ahead.
I don't want to do applications if we don't have both sides.
Well, no, I think he's there. I think he just doesn't.
He needs to be able to participate. If his phone isn't working, if there's trouble with his connection, we need to straighten that out.
Yeah, I understand. Is he on the chat thread? Can we connect with him that way?
I think he's on the phone line.
No, he is on the phone line. His phone is open and active. He can communicate if he is listening.
But he's took down. I think an hour. I think I told him at 8:30 would be good for him in an hour. You there?
Sounds like
Hello?
Caller, are you there? You are on the line and on the air. We've lost him.
Okay, let's give him like another minute.
Let's do this. We got one more regular matter, which is the Hellman Hangar. Why don't we do that? Schedule that public hearing, and then we'll come back. And if he's here, we'll go with him. If not, we'll offer our apologies and schedule it for the next meeting. All right. Does anyone have a problem with that?
Nope.
All right. Hellman Hangar is whose is that? Is that yours? Is it?
Yep.
You're on.
Yep. To scheduling a public hearing in the matter of Hellman Hangar site plan, Suffolk County tax map number 300-181-2-6. I'm going to paraphrase this in the interest of time. An application has been made for site plan approval pursuant to Article 6 of Chapter 255 of the East Hampton Town Code to construct a 50 by 50 foot or 2,500 square foot hangar with a 30 by 30 foot asphalt parking area and a 30-foot wide taxiway on a leased area that's part of the town of East Hampton Airport on the westerly side of Daniels Hall Road in Wainscott. Surveys, floor plans and elevations, and a landscape plan are all available for inspection at the planning board offices at 300 Panago Place, Suite 103 in East Hampton. A public hearing is hereby scheduled for Wednesday, June 24th, 2020 at 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard. To consider the said application, the public hearing will be held electronically by video and teleconferencing and will be televised on LTV Channel 22 and available for live stream on the LTV website, ltveh.org. The public shall not be permitted to appear in person, but may comment by telephone by calling 351-888-6331. A transcript of the hearing will also be posted to the town's website after the hearing, and the hearing shall remain open until July 24th, 2020, for the purpose of receiving written comments, which may be submitted by email directed to planningboard@ehamptonny.gov and by mail to 300 Panago Place, Suite 103, East Hampton, 11937, and received on or before close of business July 24th, 2020, or within 1 week of posting of the transcript on the town's website, whichever is later. Dated June, I think that's probably all we need to.
That's all.
On record, dated June 3, 2020.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed and carried, and that one is 7-0. So, all right, now let me ask Jason, is there any way to figure out whether the applicant is still on the line?
There is no phone calls on the line. He is not
Nobody.
presently on.
He's gone.
That's too bad. Poor guy.
Sorry we held it. We'll have to send him a note.
Julian Costanzo. I had his name down.
All right.
I have his email. I mean, I'll just maybe tell him he'll be first next meeting or something.
Yeah.
Well, it's next week, right? So we can
it's
come up
next week.
first.
We're on next week.
Yeah.
Marco, I'm sorry that you had to slog all the way through only to not get a net back.
Well, you know, his application had a lot of holes in it. And
I do not want to get into the application.
Well, no, what I meant to say is that there was a lot of things that he needed to do. So maybe he could do it from now until next week.
Yeah.
All right, but let's look. I don't want to discuss the application without the applicant here, and for any number of reasons. And so it is now, according to.
Can I just
go ahead?
I just want to say that I understand what Lou is saying. He's trying to be kind.
Yeah, no,
but the planners have to, whatever the applicant submits, the planners have to review, and that all has to be in by tomorrow at noon or something. So we can only really deal with the application as, you know, submitted by Marco next week, and anything that comes in now will not have enough time for proper evaluation to update it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't realize.
And besides which, if you were an applicant, you know, it's late. I'd rather be heard at 6:30 than at 10. So
do everything Marco says. That's all.
Yeah, that's it. Yes, read Marco. Read Marco. So, all right, it is now 9:59. Can I get a motion?
Motion to close.
Thank you.
Second.
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 All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Thank you all. Again, Jason, Mike, staff, all you folks who work so hard to get us on TV and looking good.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Sam.
it.
At least on
Thank you.
TV.
Well, whatever you call this.
You have a good night, guys.